This video has some basic tips for visual composition to get some great looking shots. To start, pick a subject or location that you think is interesting, something that you might want to look at. Think about shape and form and color. A big mistake that new camera operators will often make is to not get close enough. Wide shots are fine for establishing shots, but most shots should be close-ups or even extreme close-ups, especially when we want to see the details and beauty of something. For actors, close-ups are where the emotions are. So get in close and then think about perspective. Let's say this flower is our subject, and if we just look down at it, this is kind of an everyday perspective, and it's pretty flat and boring. Try putting the camera in an interesting location to give your audience a unique view. So instead of looking down at it, try getting down to its level. Perhaps something like this is a little bit more interesting. Go to the sides and notice how the background changes. You have to think about what's going to be the nicest looking angle for your shot. Even if you like what you see at first, experiment and try some other things. You also have to think about rule of thirds. So instead of having it smack in the middle of the screen here, we can put it off to the side, especially at those intersection points. Here is the lower left, the lower right, and upper left. Which you choose depends on what kind of shot you're going for. From this angle, perhaps something like this, since the flower is facing to the upper right and we need to give it some nose room to look into. Then we have to think about depth. Our first shot had really no depth at all. It's all at one level and it's pretty flat. From the side, we get a bit more with foreground and, let's say, background. From here, we get even a bit more of each, foreground, midground, and background. For even more depth, we might want something in front of our subject, so I can move the camera back a little bit to here. And one of the things that you should try is shallow depth of field. Instead of being zoomed out or being wide, with everything crisp in focus, I can zoom into this, take a few steps back to frame it, and we get shallow depth of field. The subject is still crisp, but notice how things in the background and the foreground go fuzzy, giving us a beautiful shot and drawing our attention to the flower even more. We can move the camera around and try different angles and put things in or out of the shot. These weeds that are just hanging out here would be great in the foreground. Also think about screen balance. You don't want everything on one side of the screen, for instance like this. This is very lopsided. We want more of a composition like this, with visual weight on both sides, making the balance even. Once you have the shot that you want, definitely get your camera on a tripod to steady the shot. Your subject can move, but your camera should be rock steady. If we see camera movement, it reminds us that a camera person is there, and it is often distracting. And make sure it's level. Use the horizon line or a bubble level to be sure. So keep these tips in mind to get some great looking shots, and good luck.